Mr. Chair, if you don't mind recalling roll call for the ex officios to see if it's working.
Let's go, I'll go back. Let's go back to Tom Leclerc. Tom, are you with us now?
Yes.
Very good. Lily Miller? Not yet. Miranda Carson?
Present.
Welcome. Ms. Taysom?
Present.
Welcome again. Mr. Price?
I am here.
As well. Sergeant Smith is not here today, but Corporal Trevor Weitzel is present in her place. Thank you, sir. Welcome.
Thank you.
Ms. Murray,
Present, thank you.
Heather Hill is here, and Caleb Hood is here as well, both present. Okay. The next item is the adoption of the agenda. Does staff have any changes?
No changes, Mr. Chair.
Any members have changes to the agenda?
No.
With no changes, I'll call for a motion to approve.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Motion and a second by Mr. Hopkins and Mr. Ballard. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Next item is the approval of the minutes of December 2 of 2024. Comments, questions, or motion? I have a couple of minor things. If anybody else have anything? Ms. Hill, in the minutes, under the approval of minutes of November 4, the chair, I believe, requested a motion from the commission for approval. You see where I am?
Sorry, on which one?
Yeah, on page 3, under the old minutes, the old minute copy, approval of minutes number 1, November 4, 2024, the chair, it should say requested a motion from. And then, let's see if I had something else. The last sentence in item 5 on page 4, there was lengthy discussion, and I would suggest it read of the pros and cons of the proposed changes, of the proposal between the commission staff and ex officios. Because we had people comment both pro and con on the proposal. That's the only changes that I suggest. Anyone else? Chair would entertain a motion.
Move to approve the minutes with the revisions requested.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve all as revised. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Hearing none, the minutes are approved. Next item is transportation project updates. Ms. Hill, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So transportation project updates this month start on page 6 of the packet. There are some updates in bold, but really there's not too many from last month in December. There is one update that didn't make it in between the publishing for this, and that's the Black Cat McMillan project. So I just wanted to update the commission that there is an interim signal that is in place as of, I believe it was December 24th. And that's to alleviate the congestion on U-Stick due to the widening project in State Highway 16. So that's an update that's not in your packet, but I thought you would care to know. Other than that,
I can report that was working 45 minutes ago when I came through it.
good to hear.
Mr. Wasson, one thing that I'll mention that's not yours, but you may know who to contact. It appears that someone cutting the corner coming south and turning west has knocked over either a telephone or a television or internet box. And that there is another box similarly located on the northeast corner of that intersection that's just waiting for somebody to get in. So you may know who to contact on those. I trust your traffic control signal is far enough back and the concrete base will ricochet small cars off or something.
Sir, there is no underestimating the stupidity of mankind.
Noted.
So, Mr. Steed, that raises
Yes, sir.
a question. So at the corner of Franklin and Eagle, in the south, no, yeah, southwest corner. Right-hand turn from Franklin on to Eagle. There's a irrigation box. Sticks up about 2.5, 3 feet. The walls are about 6 inches thick. And over the last 20 years, however, as Mr. Washington says, I don't know how you jump up on the curb and hit that concrete box, and it's almost broken out now. And I'm just kind of curious what it is that hits that box hard enough to break that concrete, because it doesn't ricochet off.
And it's been that way for a year, maybe.
Oh, no. I keep watching it every year. This last week, it's cracked all the way to the cement. And I got to thinking, 55-foot trailer, the only thing that's going to hit that is either the rear tires, and rubber's not going to crack that concrete. So something gets up on that sidewalk and hits that box. I'm just kind of curious.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Ballard, I have no idea what's hit it. I will double check, but I believe that's in ITD's right of way.
Well, it's going to be it's an ITD project, I would think, as well as there's a traffic signal there, as well as whatever irrigation district is running that water parallel to Eagle Road. I haven't seen anybody hit it. I've driven trailers up on sidewalks back in a former life, but I just can't imagine what hits that hard enough to crack 6 inches of concrete.
Mr. Commissioner, we did have a crash there a couple weeks ago where a car crashed into that box.
Oh, that would do it. Okay. Thank you, Corporal.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I got a question for Ms. Hill. Do we have any more information on the Amity Road, Locust Grove, and that intersection that's been sitting here idle for a year now?
Commissioner Hopkins, I don't have any other information other than that what's on this, and that we're just pending direction from the ACHD Commission. I don't know. Yeah, that's all we know.
I mean, they'll put a temporary signal at Black Cat, but they won't put a temporary signal at, that's a mess. So, okay, thanks.
Mr. Watson, would you like to put your toe in that water or not?
Mr. Chair, John Wasson, Ada County Highway District, thank you for the invitation, but no.
Okay. Anyone else on transportation project updates? Questions, comments? Okay, moving along, the next item of business is the election of officers for 2025. This is an annual event before this commission. We have a chairman and a vice chairman, I believe, are the only two elected officials. So the chair would accept nominations for either or both.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I nominate the current chairman, Mr. Steed.
I would accept the nomination. I commented last week, I would not campaign, but I would accept. And for vice chair?
Commissioner Leclerc.
Tom?
That is okay with me. I would do that.
Okay, we have a nomination for myself as chair again and Tom Leclerc as vice chair. Any other nominations? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you all. Okay. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, so I will express my disappointment that there was no campaign speech that promised, refreshments and breaks and things like that. So
Noted. Okay, the next item is number 4, the 2025 roadway intersection and community program prioritization. I know you were all excited as the dickens to jump into this. And I understand that Ms. Hill has already set up a subcommittee meeting for the 18th of January,
The 13th.
13th. Did you get confirmation from all the members?
Yes.
One question that the mayor suggested I ask at this point, is that membership as it should be? Would anybody else like to join that august group? Would anybody like to get off of it? Hearing no one, we'll ask Ms. Hill to give us a report, please.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the 2025 roadway intersection and community program prioritization is kicking off. There's a memo in your packet on page 13. Similar to last year, this is just kind of a recap of what's going on for the process. And I have a few things that to kind of call your attention to. So this year, we are referring to the program as the 5-year plan. So I will no longer be calling it the integrated 5-year work plan. And so on a lot of the documents, if you're curious, it's because ACHD has changed the naming convention of that. Staff have been meeting with ACHD for the kickoff of the fiscal year 26-30 5-year plan process. As part of that, we've been reviewing our previous prioritization lists and working on how we will be submitting this next year. So a change to, and I understand there was a change last year, but this year, there's going to be 2 lists. It's going to be one for roads and intersections, and then the second will be community programs. So you'll have 2 lists prioritizing roads and intersections regardless of the funding. So previously we had programmed and non-programmed, and they were broken out into 2 sections. That's going away, and we'll just have roads and then community programs. So that's a bigger change this year. So in your packet, you'll see that when ACHD sent us the list back, some of those edits were made to just have everything together. I know it's kind of small, and you'll be seeing this again in February. And so as the chair mentioned, the prioritization subcommittee is meeting on Monday, the 13th here to take a first crack at prioritizing some of these projects. And if there's any, regardless of funding, how we feel about that, because we'll have to have 1 through, might be 90 instead of just, the previous numbering. So that's something we'll be working on. And then in February, on the 3rd, the goal is for the subcommittee to bring back the recommendation to the Transportation Commission on those and finalize those rankings so that we can, I can take those to council sometime in February. So that's kind of a high level overview, just to kind of bring it to your attention. It's here, we're starting again, and public outreach for the 5-year plan actually starts this week on Wednesday. And ACHD will be discussing this new 5-year plan process at their ACHD Commission work session next week, if any of you are interested in hearing it from them as well. I think that's primarily it. I also included on your packet the timelines. It's on page 21 of your packet. These are the key dates provided by ACHD. The most important one is that our prioritization rankings are due to ACHD on March 19th. So that's the deadline we're working within. So hoping we can just do one prioritization meeting, but there are quite a bit of changes. So I wouldn't be surprised if we may need to meet again, but obviously I'll try not to do that to everyone, but just kind of letting you all know. But that's my update, and I can stand for any questions.
Thank you, ma'am. Subcommittee, I think you're realizing, if you haven't already, the time frame on this. If you can get it done on your one meeting that's scheduled, that would be great. I'm not sure that I believe you can get it done, because looking at this list, I get lost in it just trying to read it, even without the magnifying glass that Commissioner Ballard's using. So, you know, if you need to hold a second meeting, do subcommittees need 7-day notice to meet?
Not 7-day.
Okay, so keep in mind that, yes, there's pressure to get it done, but you could hold a second meeting if you need to shuffle the deck a little further. The pressure's on us because we've got to get this done with our next scheduled meeting so we can get a report out to city council so they can consider it. So there's that. And one other thing, Mr. Watson, a detailed question from me is the lack of sidewalk at the southeast corner of Macmillan and McDermott the type of project that should be on one of these lists, or is that something that can and will be handled outside of the list? We've talked about that corner before.
Mr. Chair, John Wasson, ACHD. We can put it on there, but it is also likely to be taken care of with future development, as that area develops a little bit further too, if I'm thinking about it correctly.
There's, Mr. Hood, there's no imminent
Okay.
work on the east
My
side of,
apologies. My
east side of
apologies. No,
McDermott that's coming.
You're correct, Mr. Chair. There is no development that would take care of that. So it could be put in with a project.
And I will admit, I did not read every word of the list to see if it was in there anywhere.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'm looking at this new methodology, and I guess maybe it's hidden in there, but it seems is it beneficial to think about proximity on these projects? Some of them might be just on the same street or a couple blocks away. And I don't know if we've done that so much with the community programs either, but I don't see where in any of these measurements that ACHD is looking at that that's an issue. And I guess I have a question for Mr. Wasson. Is there an economy of scale, or is it improve meeting a deadline or reducing maybe the budget if we're working two projects on the same street or in the same part of town? Is it a factor for ACHD's decision making, or and if it is, what are the benefits, if any, to putting prioritized projects sort of together, clumping them together, 19, 20, 21 or something, if they're in a similar part of town? So that's my question.
Commissioner Leclerc, Mr. Chair, John Wasson, ACHD. I don't know if I have an answer to that. I mean, we have miscellaneous sidewalk and concrete projects that we do all the time, and we try to include as many projects into one or two of those as we have. But it just depends on so much, and I'm not a project manager, so I have a hard time answering that one for you, sir.
Oh, okay, that's all right.
Well,
Well,
I'm certainly not suggesting it be put on a list, because I can see how getting on a list, it could get lost and shuffled out to 2033 or something. It is within a block of a very busy charter school. and kids move up and down McDermott because the sidewalk is continuous to the school on the north side of Macmillan.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I wasn't asking about a specific project. I just was generally, is
No,
there
that's-
some
I
benefit
understand.
to us putting these together? Does it add more points to our request, or is there any factor there where it's some of the road and intersection projects are just down the street from each other. Maybe there's benefit to that. I don't know if there is or not. We've talked about it before, but I don't know if it's mattered before.
Mr. Chairman,
So,
Yes, sir.
okay.
what we've done in the past is we have had standalone sidewalk projects on the community programs list. Back when we had the roadway list and community programs lists. But then we looked at the two together, and if there was a programmed roadway project that would overlap this, we would move it or rather under the roadway project. Or if the roadway project was really, really far out, we wouldn't move it into the roadway project because it was too far out. It's kind of, it depends.
Okay. No,
Yeah,
that's fine.
I saw something somewhere today, and I don't remember where, that there's thoughts about building a north-south sidewalk on the west side of McDermott along the new I-16. That's on the ITD side of things. The one I'm talking about is on the east side of McDermott, which is an ACHD thing. Somehow it didn't get included in the development of that southeast corner. It's gotten left alone out there, and it's just a matter of walking off concrete down through gravel and mud to get to some pavement to go to the northeast corner, which is connected to the sidewalks appropriately. So just one that I walk by when I'm out walking, so it's on my mind a lot. Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
So I have two questions for Ms. Hill. Up first, in past years, we've gotten a copy of the latest level of service map from ACHD to help in our considerations. Can you get one of those for us?
I will certainly ask.
Cool, thank you. And then second, also in past years, we've had some guidance on how many projects we should prioritize, meaning that after a certain number of projects, the points don't matter. Can you give us guidance of how many projects are going to matter in our deliberations and how many will not matter?
Are you asking for that guidance now or later?
I'm sorry?
Are you asking for that guidance at this time or when we meet as the subcommittee? Because I think really from the conversations I've had with ACHD, and Caleb can jump in if he feels necessary, they've said, this is your list, you're the city, prioritize. You guys can decide what you want to prioritize this go around. And you'll see that there's a lot because this list also reflects some that have been received from just requests from the community as well. So there may be additional community programs that haven't been prioritized before or ones that have come up. But I think ultimately, I haven't been told of how many we should prioritize or not. So
What I was getting at is like the points that are awarded, like the first place project gets 10 points from, and 9, 8, 7, all the way down to 1. And then after so many projects, the points aren't very many and don't really influence anything. That's what I was getting at.
So, Mr. Lewis, I, just consulting with Heather a little bit, I missed the kickoff for this year where they're not, and she promised that we wouldn't refer to it as the integrated 5-year work plan, but I'm an old dog, so it's going to take me a while to just say 5-year plan. But I wasn't at the meeting where they kicked that off. Historically, though, that partner agency support piece of the pie, that 15% for community programs projects, it is your top 15. So it's 15, but you can also, like the school district gets those same partner agency support points. So there's a little bit of gamesmanship in there potentially that if it's on both of your lists and it's their number 8 and our number 7, you're getting 15% because you get 8 and 7 points or 15%. So I'm not saying you should only worry about the top 15 or 20. I mean, let's set us up for success in the coming years too, right? You can do this a little bit more, but yeah, in your upcoming meeting or meetings, if it becomes plural, don't worry about project 73, if it should be 73 or 74. Probably top 25-ish are the ones that you need to spend the most time on and make sure we have that right. I want to put a finer point if I can, just Mr. Chair, while I've got the mic real quick. Heather mentioned it, but I do want to prepare you a little bit. The list you see in your packet today is what we have approved last year largely. It's in a little bit different format, but it's largely the list. But she has now from ACHD their comprehensive list of all the requests from other community members and agencies and people. And that will be part of your job, is to somewhat filter through that and add those projects up above if it's a top 15 or 20 project potentially. But you'll have that information, where the request came from, who asked for it and why. So a little bit more work this time to make it a comprehensive list. At the end of the day, we can hide, project 75 through 125 or however many there are. I'll probably just stop there, but there is some work to be done certainly this year, focusing on the top 20, 25-ish in each.
Thank you.
Mr. Ballard.
I have a question for Heather, Ms. Hill. So page 16 through 17 runs for 24 priority ranking 1 through 34. And then colored in green. And then there's a break and starts over 17 and 18, 1 through 32. And the only thing I can see that distinguishes that is the second series, 1 through 32, is not programmed, with a couple of exceptions. What distinguishes those two rankings, set of rankings?
So I believe what you're asking, and so this is the list that ACHD sent back to us, Commissioner Ballard. So really, they just took our programmed roads and intersections and our non-programmed roads and intersections and put them in order, because we have to have one list of 1 through, what would it be, 70 something potentially of roads and intersections, because they're looking for one list regardless of the funding. So those 2024 priority rankings are going to be different for 2025. So where it stops at, what is that? 50 or 64 or 34, I'm sorry. Last year, maybe the next one's 35 now. So that's what we have to evaluate and see. The ones that were previously not programmed, where do we just want those projects on our roads and intersection list?
Okay, I have a second question then. Mr. Watson may have alluded to this. So item 16 on page 16 for the 24 priority is Black Cat Franklin to Cherry. Talking about widening Black Cat, gutters and whatnot. Then on page 17, item 3 is Cherry Lane to Black Cat, widen intersection transition. Okay. Don't those two go together if you're building part of Black Cat and you come up to Cherry Lane and then it talks about widening? Aren't those two projects related? Is that part of our job now to say we're going to come up with 1 through 70?
Commissioner Ballard, John Wasson, ACHD. Typically, what we try to do is blow out the intersections first and then hook up into the intersection. So oftentimes we'll blow up the intersection to about 600 feet
Right.
on all legs. And so since I am not in the Air Force and this is an Air Force font, and I don't have good enough resolution on my glasses, and I haven't looked at this before, I don't know whether we're looking at blowing the intersection out first and then doing the roadway. But that would be my expectations. We'd try to do the intersection first
Right,
and then work on the roadway.
right. And so, and I'm looking at this, and if we're trying to, I get the task is to merge these two lists. Ms. Hill, what's the guidance on merging item 3 on page 17 with item 16 on page 16? And get it that there is a priority of what goes first, the intersection, and then you can,
Yeah, Commissioner Ballard, that's a great question. And I think that's something where, as staff, we'd have to just work with the team at ACHD to understand why that intersection was previously not programmed and why the Black Cat Franklin to Cherry corridor has a design year in place, but they didn't even have right of way or construction plan for that one. So maybe they just didn't have any years set in mind, but it's something that we can certainly ask to see if those projects could be expanded. And it also could change the design year if that's the case too.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
if I can, and again, I missed this year's sort of rules of engagement by ACHD, but in past years, they have wanted intersections to be called out separately as a separate project. Sort of as Mr. Wasson explained, they'll blow out the intersection first and then do roadway widening. But those are two separate projects. Almost like to Commissioner Leclerc's comment earlier, it can make some sense to do it all as one big project while you're out there, you got everything staged and you're ready to construct it all. But sometimes they have to put those into pieces and parts, and budget maybe only allows you to do one or the other, the roadway or the intersection. And so in the past, they've asked us to separate those things and talk about roadway widening and intersections. And those are separate things. So an intersection on either side of a 1 mile, be short of a mile, but on either side of the intersection, that section line roadways, the mile listed separately. The scoring and ranking subcommittee can certainly, in the comments section especially, say the scope of this should include widening at least this leg of that intersection or whatever you want the scope to say. But again, historically, we've separated out an intersection from the adjacent roadway at the request of ACHD.
Mr. Chairman. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
let me clarify, and I'm not trying to be funny. So I'm looking at 3 on 17 and I said, okay, we're going to widen the intersection. It's not programmed to be evaluated. Okay, to be evaluated. But yet on page 16, part of that road is already plugged into a 29-30 timeframe. And what do? Make a footnote? You go, here's the intersection and it's going to come first?
And in fact, we have made some of those notes before in the past saying, you know, this is a top priority, but make sure this intersection is done first. Maybe just a little bit on that segment in particular, number 16 on page 16, Black Cat, Franklin to Cherry. The railroad crossing is really driving why that one is programmed and higher than the intersection itself, because the stop controlled intersection at Black Cat and the railroad tracks is a real mess too. Not that the intersection is, but you have an intersection there at Franklin and Black Cat that's already signalized. So that's really driving the need to widen that mile segment is largely the railroad crossing and the substandard nature that it is with Compass Charter School and some of the other things that are going on there. So,
Okay.
but yes, those footnotes that you mentioned are appropriate. And I'll just say, sorry, Heather, but you know, some of this is what I'm hoping the subcommittee does to some degree, is define why we're asking for these projects. Those notes are going to be valuable. What are we really trying to solve here? Is it a traffic? Is it a safety? Is it because of the school proximity and lack of sidewalks? What is it the thing that we're trying to make better here? Not just widen a roadway or an intersection, but what's the problem we're trying to solve for? So.
Mr. Lewis, can I ask one more question? Right. Sure. So, Mr. Hood, as I understand it, when you cross the train tracks, is the road that crosses the train tracks, doesn't that become an ITD project limited to the concrete that goes for the tracks?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Ballard, there's a little deja vu. I think we had some of this conversation about 6 months ago with Mr. Price, and I don't think John was here that day. It may have been Sean, but there was a little bit of who leads that, and I think we're still trying to figure some of that out. Largely, though, and I think Mr. Price is still online, ITD does deal with UP and those crossings and kind of takes the lead on that. But there's definitely coordination on making a project like that work where there's railroad crossings involved.
Well, and that was my only comment, that this is a city prioritization list talking to ACHD, but there's yet a third party that is at the table.
And Mr. Chair, just a little bit of follow up on that. I think some of this too, again, that coordination and cooperation, sometimes one of the agencies looks to the other to say, tell us when you're ready and we'll be ready too. So I think there's some of that going on where ACHD, it helps the city to tell ACHD this is important. ACHD says, all right, we're going to program a year for it. ITD says that and they said, okay, we're going to find the money too. And we'll meet you at a construction year. So there's a little bit of that going on where historically we don't prioritize too many things on 2026 or 55. And we tell ACHD go, widen Chinden. No, we're barking up the wrong tree there. Here, it is a joint project that will happen. So that mile segment includes a large piece that needs to be coordinated with ITD, but appropriate for an ACHD priority list.
Thank you. I'll yield to Mr. Lewis.
Mr. Chairman, so last year was the first time that we created programmed and unprogrammed lists. And all the prior years, we just had a roadway intersection list and a community programs list. Now last year we did the new and improved programmed and non-programmed roadway and community programs, but we also created a combined list for the council just so they could see everything in one format. And that I found a copy of in our March 24 minutes, and I pulled that up for my own benefit. I think that would be a great place for the subcommittee to start their deliberations next week.
I would suggest that might be your first comment in the subcommittee meeting.
Yep. And we probably won't stray too far from that list. If I can predict.
So, Ms. Hill, do you know what the council wants from the commission in terms of the list? Are they going to want a single list, or you don't know?
Mr. Chair, as similar to last year, I think consistency is good, but I haven't heard that they're looking for anything different or specifically, more just your recommendations on what those priorities would be.
Oh, Mr. Chairman, looking at my copy of last year's stuff, I have the roadway intersection, but I don't have a copy of the community programs combined. If you could find that before next week for me, that would be great.
Yes, Commissioner Lewis. And I was also going to add to, when we meet for the subcommittee, I'm going to be preparing some documents and stuff to send to you, so you have time to look in advance. So I'll look for the list that went to council last March for roads and community programs.
Thank you.
Get those to you.
When is the next city council meeting?
Mr. Chair, there's one tomorrow night.
Okay, too late to get this on their agenda. And the next one is when? I don't keep up with them.
Mr. Chair, it would be sometime in February. I have a list. There's a few after we meet.
No, I realize, I understand. I was thinking about asking the council before the subcommittee meets about the end product. I hate to see the subcommittee work up 2 lists only to be told, go back and give us 1 list.
So, Mr.
That
Chair,
makes
I'll,
any sense.
I'll-
We're trying to satisfy 2 different entities, one ACHD and within the city, our city council. And I would like to see our work be as efficient as possible.
yeah, Mr. Chair, and Mr. Wasson was very politically keen and declined to dip his toe in a proverbial pool, but I'm going to step in it for a second anyways. Heather did actually meet with some members of the 3rd floor and kind of approached it that way. Hey, if there's any initial direction the council would like to give the Transportation Commission, because we're on such a tight schedule, things to consider, whatever, special reports to look at or whatever that the council maybe wanted the commission to consider as you're putting this together. That was Heather's plan, was to go to council, and that was vetoed, if you will, and to just do your normal thing. So we tried to make it a little more seamless and not this back and forth, and to call a special meeting of the Transportation Commission because council wanted you to reevaluate something or something later on, and we're kind of told to stand down from that. So appreciate the thought, and that was a thought that, I don't know if she's the brainchild of it, but Heather came up with that idea anyways and floated it to get on a upcoming council agenda, and that was, again, kind of shot down. So we're going to do the best we can to avoid that. There's no special direction that we have to share on behalf of the council for this year. It's, if we hear of anything, I think we'll share that with you, but we aren't going to be
Okay.
able to ask that beforehand.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
So I want to make sure I didn't misspeak. So we've always had 2 lists, always, for as long as we've been doing this. We've had a roadways, intersections list and a community programs list. It was last year that we had actually 4 lists. We had programmed and unprogrammed, roadways, intersections, and community programs. So we had 4 lists last year, and that was too many. So we combined the 4 into our usual 2 for council. That's what I meant to say.
I'm glad I'm not on the subcommittee. All I noticed, sir. Anyone else? Ms. Hill, anything else?
That is all. Thank you.
Corporal Wetzel, if you want to get a magnifying glass like Commissioner Ballard and look at the list that's in the packet and have something in your mind or from your division that jumps out as not being on here, I would invite you to contact Ms. Hill and bring it up. I'm not suggesting there is anything, but y'all are out there looking at this stuff every moment of every day. And as I keep telling the commission, you can't really do or think about transportation without going out and looking at what it's doing. So,
Yeah, I'll talk to Sergeant Smith. We'll look it over and.
and I'm not suggesting you have to or anything, just a thought.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Next item on the agenda, ex officio updates. And let's see. Mr. Wetzel, I'll just start at the bottom of my list and work up, and that puts you being number 1. Does the police department have anything to tell us worth hearing?
No, sir, no updates.
Okay, Mr. Price, ITD.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Only a continuation from last meeting. The news report on Eagle Road did go out. I suspect most of you have seen that. Work will be in the spring. There will be a couple of the unsignalized left turn movements will be removed. There will be variable speed limits installed through portions of it. We're working through some of the software and signage and communication, all of those issues we're working through now. So, but that is moving forward, and you'll start seeing changes in the spring. So that's all I have for oh, and as far as our the project updates for ITD, I spoke with our planner, and for the next meeting he'll have those ready. So that's all for me.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Taysom, anything from VRT?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nothing significant, but I do want to let you know that we are working through standardizing our reporting for ridership, and we'll be getting that to you for the February meeting.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Carson, how's the busing business?
It's going good. We are also working on our ridership, so that's exciting things. We're using those badges and working on getting our state reports to how we can simplify those by using the badges. That's about all the updates we have.
Things have settled down from the beginning of the year, I guess.
Yes, Mr. Chair, they have. It's much calmer now, and we're looking forward to our spring riders. We get a lot more riders in the spring when fall sports are over, so that's starting to pick up. And
Okay, I personally never thought of that. Okay, Mr. Miller, anything from Compass, sir?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. I would like to use this time just to give the commission a brief update on our Safe Streets and Roads for All Safety Action Plan at Compass. Going before our board of directors in their February meeting will be the final plan, ideally. This safety action plan has been in the works for or at least brewing, I think, for about 4 years now. So Compass has what we call our change in motion scorecard. Every 2 years, we look at the objectives our board has set for us and the targets they've set for things such as roadway maintenance. How are we doing there? Congestion, safety, things like that. And we report back on the data to just make sure our region's transportation system is moving in the correct direction that we would like to see. Not surprisingly, safety is something that we would like to see faster improvement on, and it came up 4 years ago. Staff was tasked with taking a closer look at how can that be done. So staff was looking at what are best practices throughout the nation, and it turned out a safety action plan was the direction we thought was best for our region. Convenient timing. About 2 years ago, the federal government actually had a federal grant offering. Compass submitted, and we were awarded that competitive grant. And we have been working over the course of the last 2 years with various stakeholders throughout the 2-county area. Certainly, City of Meridian staff has been included on that. And we're getting really close to the end product. So just want to make you all aware, we're going to have the final thing posted on our website here soon. It'll be included in next month's board packet. A real high-level overview. It includes specifically for the City of Meridian, the starting point of a potential competitive grant if the city would like to pursue it, for a project on Overland Road between Eagle and State Highway 69. We do also have a toolkit of systemic strategies that can be used throughout the city, or really for our planning area, anywhere within the Ada and Canyon County region. And each of these strategies have a defined benefit to them of reducing at least the risk of serious and fatal injury crashes. So keep in mind as you're looking through it, someone clipped my mirror, a little fender bender. While those are very frustrating and I'm sure create a lot of work, this plan itself was not necessarily focused on those. It was more those life-altering events. Also included, and I think of a special note, while you all are considering a prioritization list of projects, included in the plan is a high injury network. It has actually been provided on a web map that is available to certainly you all and any other members of the public. and it used 5 years worth of crash data to identify where are these fatal and serious injury crashes occurring, and then using some of the characteristics of those locations to try to predict where they might happen in the future in order to be a little bit more proactive in avoiding those instead of waiting until it's too late. So again, that is going before our board next month. However, many of the materials are on our website. Glad to share a link to that webpage if you're interested. That is all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Wasson, you're up.
Sir John Wasson, Ada County Highway District. With regards to Rock Harbor Church, we do have a traffic plan with the church and with MAV Security to implement it. It's been given to them for 4 weeks to see how well they are successful with the implemented plan and how the neighborhood reacts, and then we'll review it and work with the police and go from there. But at least they do have a traffic control plan on hand now, and the proper insurance and things like that. As you know, the Linda Road project has been approved in concept by the commission, Linda Road, Pine to Ustick. We're starting to get questions. I can't answer them right now because the concept's been approved. We haven't developed the design for the roadway. We haven't started right-of-way acquisition, and we haven't started construction. So we know that we're gonna purchase a number of homes and or businesses along that section of Linder, and it will be a multi-year project.
Anything else?
Negative, sir.
I would compliment ACHD on how well the U-stick from 10 Mile to Black Cat is progressing in spite of the wet weather. A lot of things happening, and they're keeping for the most part, best I can tell, keeping the traffic flowing, although I'm sure a lot of people like myself only driving on the weekends to see what they've gotten done and not dare get on it during the week. But looks good. Okay. Next item, Ms. Hill, you're back up with staff communications, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we have only one staff communication, and it is related to Rock Harbor Church.
Did your email quit working or something with only one?
I was thankful for the holidays.
Okay.
So this was the primary one, which I know we've received several, and as John Watson's already spoke to, they have a traffic control plan, but I included this in the packet to, if he didn't have a chance to speak to it, I was going to let you know. So that's the only one in the packet for this month.
Having been out to Rock Harbor Church a couple of 3 Sundays ago and seen what was going on, I think Sergeant Smith really encapsulated what is occurring out there. A professional flagging company that's now dealing through ACHD. And the lady's comment from back in December the 22 about having trouble getting past cones. What I found when I was out there, if you slowed down and looked puzzled or perplexed, as I did, because I wasn't following the traffic into the church parking lot, every one of the people out there at 4 different places immediately asked me, "Are you a resident?" And I presume had I said yes, I would have been asked, "Where do you need to go and how do we help you get there?" So it's not perfect. It's still a lot of cars moving in a residential neighborhood, but it does have some pattern to it that ACHD is apparently approved for at least 4 weeks. Any questions on any of the
Mr. Steve,
communications? Yes, sir.
the email that says I read this, it says she's been denied access to her property on occasion. What's the truth of that?
It did not occur to me personally when I went out there.
No.
I don't know.
I mean, I read this and I'll be kind. This sounds like a exam question that I would have in law school. As to, and I get it, working very hard to control traffic. But you have a private organization that is able to interfere with property rights. I'm just kind of curious, and I get it. This is the fourth time that this item has appeared. And as a member of this commission, I have very little information as to what is going on out there other than somebody above us is working on it, and hopefully there will be a resolution.
Mr. Watson, the way it's currently being run, they are not allowed to deny permission to residents to access their property. Is that, am I correct?
Mr. Chair, you are correct. They are not restricting people from travel. Now,
They are
that means
direction.
they're directing, they may hold traffic for a minute or two or three, and that happens a lot of times with traffic control. Unfortunately, some people think that if they're delayed for 2 minutes, their first through 32nd Amendment rights are being violated. And I hate to say it that way, but I see it all the time in my business. I think the police probably see similar things in their business, and we're getting one side of the story at this point in time, and we can't say it's accurate or it's inaccurate or it's partially accurate. I think what we do going forward is we continue to work with it. If we get complaints, we can get inspectors out there on a weekend and have an inspector observe the traffic control and how the flaggers are managing that traffic control. Or we work with the police and get a police officer out there to see what they will see, because what we're looking for is a third party, an honest third party that's not involved in the situation. Does that make sense, sir?
I understand what you're saying. But no one has the right to condemn private property and take the use. It's called eminent domain. Now, I get it when the city of Meridian wants to hold a parade a couple times a year and they block off the street. I get that. But if they wanted to hold a parade every week and interfere with access to property, and I get it, it's a management problem. I truly do. And so that's why I'm asking, how is it, if they can, deny access to a piece of property?
Again, Commissioner Ballard, Chairman Steed, I don't think they're denying access. They are managing traffic. They may be holding traffic for a couple of moments. There's absolutely nothing involved with the taking of property and such action like that, as I understand it. But again, I'm an armor colonel and a traffic engineer and not an attorney.
Well, I'm just, I really have no facts to make an assessment of the situation and say is that it's been brought before the Transportation Commission. And I'm not talking to you, I'm talking to the whole group. This problem's been resolved above our pay grade, and we've had no input on it. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Corporal, please.
So we've gotten several complaints from residents in the area about this particular issue, as you guys are all very aware. So a couple Sundays ago, we had an officer go out there several times during the day and sit and just watch kind of what traffic was doing and what the issues appeared to be. From his perspective, it looked like the flagging company was doing a good job working with the residents to get them to their homes. Now, I can't specifically refer to this specific incident because we weren't there for that one. But from his perspective, it looked like they were letting residents go to their homes. There didn't seem to be an issue as far as that is concerned. And from his perspective, it looked like the flagging company was helping more than they were impeding or hurting the situation, if you will. So that for Mr. Watson's point, we had somebody go out there and look, and that was kind of the opinion of where we were at with the matter.
Well, I appreciate the input. That's the first time I've heard that.
Thanks, sir.
Mr. Chairman,
Lancaster, good to hear from you.
now that we've heard multiple facets of the law weigh in, I'm curious about your experience. So when you drove there and they ask, are you a resident? And you say no. So what happened then? So this is purely out of curiosity. Did they invite you to buy a house or find religion or get lost or what happened?
They actually looked rather puzzled because they apparently weren't used to people that are just doing a Sunday afternoon or Sunday morning drive. And I would just tell them, no, I live in Meridian and thank you and move on. But it was really kind of funny. They were expecting a yes, I am, or no, or I'm just trying to get to church. And when I indicated I was not either, it was kind of a third option they hadn't been prepared for.
Yeah, so what happened then?
In one case, I went down to the next corner, turned, parked legally, and went back with my camera. In another, I just went on through to see what was happening at the next intersection. Again, I saw what the police department says they saw. It's working better than nothing. It is a very large church with 5 major services a Sunday, if I understand correctly, and residential streets that are being forced to accommodate it because there's no way out on the highway.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, it sounds like the conditions are improving and perhaps after a few more times, the temporary traffic control company will learn, they'll have a picture of you and say, don't let this guy through.
Could happen. Anyone else? Okay, that concludes our agenda, except to mention we have 5 future meeting topics that still remain. We will bring those to you as they develop. Any other comments, questions, statements? Hearing none, the chair would accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Mr. Lewis, second by Mr. Ballard. Yes. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Have a good rest of your day.
All right. Happy New Year.